Welcome to another episode of the Bearded Realtors. I am again joined with my good friend Dave. Dave, please introduce yourself.
Hey, Shawn, once again, David Chamra, Century 21, Action Plus Realty, based in Monmouth and Ocean County, New Jersey.
I am Shawn McKillop. I am Global Banker Team Real Estate in Wyndham, Maine. Today we want to talk about for sale by owner versus working with a real estate agent. For sale by owner, also known as FSBOs.
The FSBO.
So, FSBO. So, Dave, can you tell me why a seller wouldn't want to list with a real estate agent?
Well, frankly, I think a lot of people, and especially the age of the internet, think that why list with a real estate agent and pay that agent commission if I could just put a couple photos of my property on the internet and sell it on my own. And it comes down to a money thing that I've, had in my personal experience, paying a small percentage of a commission gives you a lot of resources that a listing agent would be able to provide. But I don't think that a lot of sellers know the value in that yet.
Yeah, I agree. The biggest thing I would say is the biggest reason somebody wouldn't want to list is because they don't want to pay the commission. For example, if the commission is 5% on a $250,000 house, that's $12,500. On a $1 million house, that's $50,000. So right off the bat, you may be thinking, well, that's a lot of money that I could be kind of keeping in my pocket. Where I don't think people realize all the things that a real estate agent does besides just list a home, maybe, or some people's pictures, put a couple pictures up on the internet. Another thing I can think of is maybe a seller had a bad experience previously with another agent and they don't want to go through that again. Another thing I can think of is maybe they already have a sales or marketing background where they feel that real estate agent's not really going to be able to provide them any more than what they kind of already know or kind of already do with their job or their lives now.
I know I'm speaking for both of us. We both have sales backgrounds outside of real estate. And sometimes it could be easy to forget that this whole world is a very different thing than any other kind of sales. But a lot of people would probably say, well, I've sold things before, so selling a house is kind of like selling my car, boat, or whatnot. And let me take a stab at it. But there's a lot more that goes into it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. An agent will provide more information. We're a resource, is what we are.
Yeah.
If you're trying to sell your house on your own, there's a lot of information you might not know. Just for example, here in Maine, we have a withholding tax if you're an out of state. So let's just say, for example, you live in Massachusetts, your primary residence is Massachusetts, but you have a second property here in Maine and you decide to sell it. Well, Maine's actually going to hit you with a non-resident tax. So you may be preparing your mind all the things that you're going to be netting off the sale of your house, but maybe you're not taking into consideration that out-of-state withholding tax because you didn't know about it. Other things are also like CO. If you're trying to sell your house and your township requires you to get a CO and you're not familiar with that, if you don't get that CO, you're not going to be able to close on the house.
Right.
Especially with COVID right now, there's a lot of things that traditionally home sales were very straightforward as far as the process goes. But now being a resource, knowing more rules, especially with COVID, how do you navigate these things when you're on your own, just trying to sell your house and you don't maybe have these resources? Now, you can still have a title company in New Jersey, for example, you have attorneys, which is helpful. But also the agent is going to be scheduling the showings, doing the showings for you, where if you were possibly trying to sell your house on your own and you're at work, you get a phone call, they want to see the house, you're not there to show it, then you're going to be kind of limiting yourself on the amount of people that are coming through. Where the agent is a full-time job for us, so we're doing that legwork. We're showing the houses. We're trying to be a resource. Home inspector, list of home inspectors, list of mortgage reps, that kind of thing. We're trying to bring to the table to make the transaction as seamless as possible. And also, we're weeding out those unqualified buyers too, because if you're a homeowner and you're just kind of letting anybody in the house, you're not really getting that background on them, where maybe they're not qualified to be looking at your $1 million house or even your $250,000 house. You don't know exactly who is coming into your house.
Well, I love that the last point of the agent being able to kind of filter out the non-qualified buyers, because, offers are great and multiple offers are even better, but offers without any kind of sustenance are, just pieces of paper. And, a seller could look at it and say, hey, this offer's 10% higher, so I'm just going to go with that one. But if funding or the proper documents aren't going to be able to be secured, then it's really just a piece of paper. And it is, say, the listing agent's full-time job in order to, make sure that all these things are in line. So that is something that's huge. The other thing that I've found, myself and a couple colleagues took a small sample of a couple of units that did sell for sale by owner, versus comparable units that were listed with our agency. And we saw somewhere between like an 8 and all the way up to a 15% difference in what the home sold for, on the higher side being when sold with an agent. So I think that kind of directly combats well, I don't want to pay the commission, because when you kind of factor that in, a 6% commission on a home sale, if you're getting, let's even say on the low end of that spectrum, if you're getting 8% more for your house, well, your commission's already been paid for then at that point. And it's a huge thing. And the reason why like the commissions and such are paid is because you brought up a great point. I mean, if you're trying to sell the house on your own, you're going to worry about dealing with prospective buyers while you're at work or while you're at dinner or while you're with your family and whatnot. And for the agent, that's their job. So, I mean, if for them to take on your listing, it's kind of understood that while we're at work, we're supposed to be promoting and selling your house. So, I mean, it's huge. It's kind of having your own concierge there, doing the work for you. It's more than just taking a couple photos, putting it up on our website or MLS or social media and saying, have at it. It's more of being able to kind of give almost like a white glove service. Like you want to really take care of everything for that person from start to finish and have their confidence in you to do the right thing.
Yeah, selling your house is definitely an emotional experience. Let's be honest. It was the biggest, potentially the biggest transaction of your life. Now you get to sell a house and maybe you've lived 10, 15 years or longer in this particular house. There are a lot of people who are possibly underwater in their house, and having that commission is really going to eat into what they're going to net. And we understand that. I always try to be a little sensitive to people who are, especially in that position. But a lot of times, because emotion is involved in there, maybe that this person is listing their house too high, and you could list your house as high as you want, but if it doesn't sell, it doesn't do you good.
Right.
That's where the real estate agent's going to be able to come in and look at comparables and really price the house correctly. I know Zillow has been a blessing and a nightmare for agents like us, but just to use for an example, a year ago, I refinanced my house. It appraised for $200,000. Now it's probably about 210, 215. But when I just want to check it out in Zillow yesterday just to see, and the price of it was $260,000. So
victory.
Yeah, there we go, right? If I was a homeowner and I saw that, I would try to list my house for $260,000, which is about $50,000 more.
Right.
I'm going to be very disappointed.
Right. And what's amazing too with them is sometimes, depending on the location, the ranges crack me up, where it's like they'll give you that Zestimate range of, when my parents sold their house, I think the range was like 363 to 413. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, so
anywhere in there.
Anywhere in there. And then that being said, the phenomenon of people, say, moving from a larger metro area into their smaller community, their house sold for way above the 413. So it's a great kind of reference point to use. But I think, and like you said, the emotions kind of will play into things. I mean, people's houses could be decorated a certain way or set up a certain way or whatnot that is really near and dear to them. But you got to kind of think about on a selling standpoint, like, is this setup going to be right? I mean, I know personally, if I'm trying to sell a place, I'm not just going to take a snapshot of what it looks like now, and people might think that it looks amazing now, but you almost got to kind of stage it. I hate to use the IKEA reference, but if you ever walk through an IKEA living room, I mean, it's set up ideally for the way that it's supposed to be sold, maybe not lived in, but sold. And that's where maybe the expertise of someone who is in an agency that have sold hundreds upon hundreds of homes a year versus the one home sale that a for sale by owner is going to do, there is a little bit different eye and a little bit different expertise. And then the other thing that I kind of saw, I actually have a person that's a for sale by owner right down the block from me, who we're going to be talking to very shortly. And his exposure was putting a couple photos on Instagram and running an Instagram story and saying, hey, my home is for sale. And I'm going to be able to present him and say, well, that's fantastic. We're also going to put it on, say our Instagram and all these other places too. So your exposure, instead of reaching, maybe 50 to 100 people a day, you're going to reach potentially 50 to 100 people an hour, and that's a huge thing because it creates interest and desire for that home.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a third option, which is some of these companies on the MLS, they have these, they'll put your house on the MLS. It's still almost like a for sale by owner, but you're still paying them a certain amount of money to list it in the MLS. And the difference between that and real estate agent is the real estate agent is, going to be doing all the things that we talked about as far as marketing. Staging is another thing that you were talking about, which is big. But these companies that kind of just put in the MLS and then leave it up to you, well, you're still doing the legwork. You're still paying somebody, and almost at that point, you're better off, going through an agency that's going to be really looking at the home more than you can, because it's a lot of emotional things. Maybe there's something that stands out to a real estate agent where they can kind of say, we need to kind of change this a little bit, where maybe you've lived in the home so much where you haven't thought about it now.
Sure.
So let's talk about legal risks too. Just real quick, I want to touch upon that. As a seller, you need to disclose everything that's is wrong with the house. Here in Maine, because it's so cold, we have to disclose if anything has been wrong with the heater for within a certain time. If you don't know these things, you can run into some legal risks, which is the last thing. The idea is once you sell the home, you want to have that peace of mind that the home is sold and nothing's going to kind of come up after a couple months later and kind of rear its ugly head on. So
right,
legal risks as far as one day if you decide you're in a transaction, you're under contract, you decide not to sell. Well, do you know what kind of legal risks you're going to be exposed to? An agent will be able to know those things, especially if they're a full-time agent, telling these are the kind of risks that you're going to run into, and to kind of advise you along the way. Whenever I'm working with a seller, I kind of take it in steps. Like the end goal is obviously to get to the closing table, but first we got to find a buyer, we got to get through a home inspection. If there's a mortgage, we got to get through that mortgage process, and all the other little things that kind of come up. We're talking about CO, a couple other things, and an agent's really going to be able to guide you through the whole process. Where if you're on your own, you're going to be using a title company, where the title company starts kind of acting as attorney or agent. That's not their job. As the title company, their job is to look for liens, make sure it's clear, so the house can close lien free. Can you give us your contact information again? If somebody's in the area and wants to get a hold of you, how can they get?
Sure thing, absolutely. Always reachable on my cell phone at 732-824-4547. You can call or text, and my email is david@davesellsdreamhomes.com.
Okay, sure. And you can reach me. My cell phone number is 207-200-7068. Email address ShawnDMcKillop@gmail.com. And we both look forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions, if you want to build that relationship, give us a call and we'll get started working with you. Dave, thanks for joining me again. We'll see you again soon.
Definitely looking forward to episode 3.